Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to be speaking a little bit about some tentative reading and writing plans which I have for this new year. Obviously, I don't know if I'll be able to get through all of these books, which I am recently purchased and have had on my shelf for a while, but just I would like to get through at least some of them in this year and also talk a little bit my writing plan. So I buy like pretty much not all of my books, but like the majority of them now from a local used bookstore called Mr. K's. It has several chains and several places throughout the U.S. South. I personally don't want to state my location publicly, but I am somewhere in the U.S. South currently. I got some Walter Dean Myers books recently, and there's a few other in this shelf I'll show you later. I was introduced to him when I was taking a YA literature class when I was studying for a master's degree in library science. I really liked him. That was actually the first, not the first book, but like the first like prose book, because I did like the graphic novel in verse, which I chose to read, but like his was like the first actual, traditional prose book in the clutch, which I actually liked instead of really not liking and writing a negative report of for the teacher, because he was writing before the giant explosion in YA, so that might have something to do with it. It's not like this first person present tense nonsense we see so much of these days. He wrote gritty urban contemporary books about real teens instead of this like shallow fluffy high school drama crap. And so this one obviously called Harlem Summer. It looks like a really fun, good book. I just really can't say enough good things about his writing, and I'm looking forward to reading it, because I can't think I haven't read a single book of his at all which I didn't like. And this one was on the outside of the store. They have these racks of books, categories by genre and category, and this was in the historical section. It's and not like a spin-off, but it's a companion novel authorized by Margaret Mitchell's estate called Ruth's Journey, which is about Mammy. I was started to read another book of this by Donald McCaig, Rhett Butler's People. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to finish it before it got back to the library, but I guess I liked what little I read of it, although I know a lot of people have very strong emotions about these Gone with the Wind like sequels and spin-offs and such, because obviously when you're not the writer yourself, you can't really know what makes all these characters tick. Like, for example, Rhett isn't always the alpha male he is in the original source material, and all sorts of things. Like The Wind Done Gone was absolutely derivative garbage. I may do a video about that, but hopefully this one will be pretty good and I will enjoy it, because I absolutely love the Gone with the Wind novel, even though obviously of course it does have certain like aspects that haven't aged so well, but it's like just a really wonderful book. I don't hear the other Walter Dean Myers books, which I wrote. This one is takes place during the Vietnam War, and this one looked really interesting, about some like young kids, preteens, who become the landlords of a building. And some of these books here are like things I've read in the past, but I would possibly like to reread in the coming year. I bought this at the $5, I think, yeah, the cheap shelf in Barnes & Noble, Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. I first read this, I guess, 30 years ago now. I know I'm dating myself. In the 5th grade, I absolutely loved it. And this was like, I guess kind of revolutionary for the time, because a lot of the older, 19th century children's books are about these annoying, insipid little goody-goodies, and I hate goody-goodies. Like, they're even more annoying in fiction than they are in real life. But I guess like so-called boys books, you could like get away more with like children who act like real instead of like, oh, precious sweet mummykins, like all this like Victorian other garbage. Because until we get to basically Harriet the Spy in the like 50s and 1960s, there really wasn't a lot of realism in children's literature. But like Mark Twain was one of the, I guess, first, as to my knowledge, who was writing about actual children who weren't always like sweet and kind and like being just annoying goody goodies. I just you tell I really do not like goody goodies in fiction. Got this at the used bookstore as well. Sholem Aleichem, I would consider him one of my top 10 favorite writers. I've read quite a lot of his short stories over the years, including the short story collection Tevye the Dairyman, also called Tevye's Daughters. Obviously, that was what the film and the play Fiddler on the Roof were based on. I would consider it one of the absolute best like book to screen adaptations which I've seen. I mean, obviously they couldn't fit in everything. Like, for example, Tevye has 7 daughters in the story collection, and 5 of them get love stories, and several characters like have different ends and such like that. And there's like a different outcome to the intermarriage, but it does get a lot of things correct. And so I really hopefully will enjoy this because I've enjoyed everything else which I've read by him, and also I'll show you some other Yiddish literature I got in this pile because, as I mentioned when I did a blog post and a video about Dara Horn's new essay collection with the provocative title "People Love Dead Jews." Like, unfortunately, more people can name 3 death camps than they can name 3 Yiddish writers, or even Hebrew writers or Ladino writers or other Jewish language writers, and it's really unfortunate. I mean, I obviously know 3 Yiddish writers, but they're only the big 3, including Sholem Aleichem and Isaac Bashevis Singer, and I really should get more familiar with Jewish literature. It's kind of embarrassing. I haven't read any Yiddish literature in quite a few years, but hopefully I will start filling that gap very soon. And I bought several Charles Dickens books from the used bookstore. I'm really sorry. I know the lighting is terrible, but I couldn't really film earlier in the day, and I'm not quite sure which one to start with. I know it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I've never read a single Charles Dickens novel, and hopefully these will be very good to start with. And in general, I'm not really into, personally, like 19th century English language literature. It's just, in my experience, I found it like really overly like flowery. Like, that was why I DNF'd Jane Eyre when I was 13, for example, and why I just skipped through the descriptive parts when I had to read The Age of Innocence for my 8th grade history class. Is still pulled an A++ on the book report. And, like, for example, why I have like DNF'd Persuasion by Jane Austen, like a very detached telly style. This happened, then that happened, name did this, name said that, then these things happened over the summer. Like, but maybe my mind will be changed by Dickens, because I just generally haven't had very good experiences with reading 19th century English language literature so far, and maybe like that will finally turn around if I read some different books. So, like, if you can like recommend which of these you think would be best for me to start with, or which you would like recommend as your personal favorite, just let me know. And obviously this, I read parts, some chapters of this. I couldn't like tell you how many or which ones, but in my 12th grade Spanish class, we read some of Don Quixote in the Spanish. I've never like read it in full, either in English or Spanish, and I would love to get back into that. And kind of my enjoyment of reading it was a little bit marred, because in that Spanish class I was sitting near 3 girls. One was a sophomore from Argentina, and the other 2 were junior girls. They could not stop gabbing and gabbing and gabbing about their sex lives during class. It was so annoying and distracting. And one of the junior girls kept saying, "Don Quixote es loco." Like, is that the only thing you get from this book, that he's crazy? And he's kind of supposed to be crazy, and also he's a lot nicer and like more genuine and sincere than some of these loons and like weirdos and like terrible people around him. So like, if that's the only thing you get from the book, it's like you're not being a very discerning reader at all. And obviously these are the other Isaac Bashevis Singer books, which I got from the used bookstore. They look really good. They're supposed to be some of his finest. Years ago, I think it must have been in like 1998, maybe 1999, in my very late teens. I read his last book, which was published posthumously, Shadows on the Hudson. I enjoyed that very much, and I think I might have heard some of his short stories like on the radio or something, but I don't believe I've read anything else by him since then. And I'm looking forward to these books, particularly since, as I mentioned, I do need to fill the gap of my experience, and I'm reading literature which was originally written in Yiddish, despite how like my personal feelings are that I guess Hebrew is a superior Jewish, not superior, but it's just like it reflects a people who are like finally empowered with their own national homeland, reborn after so many years of exile and being in painful diaspora. So just like Yiddish always like represented something I didn't think was positive, and so there I kind of like shun things to do with Yiddish literature and culture, which was not something good. And I obviously need to fill that gap and stop like thinking negatively about the language just because it was spoken by so many people who couldn't control that they were in like a second class status. It was like really like ignorant of me. I can't believe I used to think like that. And as I mentioned in several posts, I've been reading this series over the last year. I began reading it last January, actually, and I just finally, thankfully, the price on the last book, well, not really the last book, but the last 2 books bundled. They were all bundled together when they were reissued 10 or 20 years ago or so. it dropped on Amazon, so now I can finally read the last book in the series, Betsy's Wedding. I read the second to last through the library, and it's bundled with the last book. And after I finish the Betsy Tacy series, I will begin reading it all over again. These are the first 4 books bundled together with introductions and such from fans, because I admit I didn't really not dislike it, but it wasn't really my style, or I was kind of disappointed when I was first reading it because so many people had swooned all over and said it's some of the best unsung literature you've ever read, and it just kind of failed to meet the expectations for me because I was just expecting absolute perfection and to fall in love with the characters. So maybe when I go back, knowing what's already there, I'll have a much better time with it and think more positively of it. And also but I do admit because Betsy and her friends have quite a lot of upper middle class privilege, and I just can't relate to that, and neither can I relate to a high school experience where they care more about popularity and social life and going to football games and boys than reading and keeping to yourself and studying and doing well in school. That's just something I can't relate to, but I do enjoy the writing itself, and I do know I will probably have a better experience when I go back and reread these books because I know what to expect now. As I mentioned, I got this lovely not original, but in the first year of publication, 1936, a hardcover of Gone with the Wind from the used bookstore as well. I'm really looking forward to rereading this. I'm possibly thinking of this being my plain reading if, God willing, I'm able to make Aliyah move to Israel within this year, because obviously it's a very long book. I think it took 2 or 3 weeks or so when I originally read it. I believe it was in 2004. My mass market paperback is in storage 900 miles away with almost all of my other books, and hopefully I will finally get them down to me within the year. Obviously I'll need them to make Aliyah and put them on my lift. Obviously my brother won't come through with shipping my books down to me, as I've mentioned. He disowned me for reasons too stupid to get into here, but just disagree on politics, and so he's having a snit fit about that. I also got this recently at the used bookstore. It looks like a brand new copy, George Eliot's Middlemarch. My parents have in multiple volumes of the book and really old hardcovers, but this is in all one volume in a nice paperback of a decent seeming trim size, and I have heard some of it on audiobook over the years. My father has listened to a lot of audiobooks for many years, and so I've been exposed to literature in that way, but I would like to try reading this. And as I've mentioned already, 19th century English language literature has never really been my thing because I've just had some bad experiences with it, or was expecting it to be more like modern literature and not giving it a fair chance. So maybe I will enjoy this. And I do admit I need to read a more not women's literature, but literature written by women, not necessarily in what we would call the genre of women's literature, because it's kind of embarrassing to admit most of the books I've tended to read over the years have been by men. It's not like I'm deliberately shunning female writers. It's just that's how it's naturally come out for me, because I mentioned I am largely a tomboyish woman, and so therefore that's what I've naturally gravitate to, and that's also a big gap which I do need to start filling. I know, and this also is on the shelf outside of the store, 1000 White Women. It's told in journal form. I believe it's based on a real woman who lived in the pioneer West 19th century in the U.S., so that might be interesting to read. This also is on the shelf outside. It's Russian historical fiction. That's also something I write. I'll be speaking more about that possibly in future posts about my Russian historical novels. And obviously, I mentioned if I can get to 100 subscribers, God willing, I will do a series on the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. I haven't done a full reread of this, but I've obviously dipped in and out of the stories many times over the years since I first read it in full when I was 22 years old. It's one of my absolute all-time favorite books. It's just so deliciously filthy. I just love all the dirty language and the dirty puns. And this one, the Mark Musa and Peter Bondella translation, it restores all the dirty language and double entendres and dirty jokes and puns and things like that. And that's something to really look forward to, because I can't say enough good things about this book, and you do need a good modern translation to really appreciate it. And all of us, you need to be familiar with all the stories again so I can properly do the series on it. And obviously I'm doing the 100 Days of Dante with Baylor College. I think we're on like Canto 20 or 21 of Purgatorio. Currently, unfortunately, the translation I've been using for the reading group we're doing isn't a reasonable price currently. It's like $35, which is pretty freaking ridiculous. So like if I cannot find that, with a lower price in time, even in a used book that's like only in like good or acceptable condition, I will obviously have several other translations of the Commedia, which I will be happy to read. And this isn't on my book. I've been indefinitely borrowing it from my father. I need to do a full reread of the Aeneid as well. I read it in my 12th grade English AP class. I really didn't like it until it got to about midway through and like the war started and it started getting really like fun and exciting, like an exciting fast-paced battle story. But I guess that must have been an older translation that was in 1997 through 1998. I read that and it's just, I know it's a really important work of literature and I need to like have a full reread of it, particularly now that I'm an adult and can appreciate literature in a different, a more mature way than I did when I was younger. And this, it's not really like a book, but it's like a language instruction book, Lingua Latina, by Hans H. Uterberg. It was like a revolutionary approach to language learning at the time, because like instead of making you memorize like tables of grammar and like punctuation and like vocabulary and all these like usual things for learning a language, he just like writes everything in Latin, and at the end of each chapter he'll like do like a little table like explaining like grammar and things like that, or in the margins he'll like explain with like illustrations or diagrams what the words mean. But like from the very first line you're like reading fluently in Latin, and like he has like stories about a family throughout the book as well, and they get more complex as they go on, and it ends with some like mythology and like real Latin literature stories. But it's just a really interesting thing. One of the greatest regrets of my life is that I was unable to study Latin my junior and senior years of high school. My long story short, I was signed up to start taking Latin as an upperclasswoman in Albany High School in New York, but my family unfortunately moved, and the new school we went to did not have Latin. I had to take French instead. And then when we moved to, again, my for my senior year of high school, the new high school in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, it did have Latin, but I figured like it was a lost cause, too depressed over missing it by that point. So I studied Italian instead, and that was I loved that class. I took to it like lightning, but I still like always wished I had taken Latin and had the chance to study it formally. But now with this wonderful book, I can finally start learning Latin, because I have like read through the first chapter and got a little book to keep track of all the notes at the exercises he has in the back for you to fill in the blank and do like declensions of the words and such. And so that will be like really fun. Hopefully I will be able to like read actual text in Latin when I'm finished with this book, because it's just, I wish more language instruction was like that. And obviously I'd like to conclude now by talking about the writing projects which I have planned for this year, which I'm going to continue. As I've been mentioning several times, my current focus is an alternative history about Dante and Beatrice, and I would possibly like to get back to a radical rewrite of a book which its working title for many years was The Very Last. It's the third book in my Atlantic City book, first series with these characters that's set over the course of 1940. Even though it has all the books and all the first three books have new names now, I've continued calling them by the titles The Very First, The Very Next, and The Very Last, like when I write about them or think about them, because it's just how I think about them emotionally. It was their titles for many years, and I've like outlined all the like the radical rewrite of like the third book and the fourth book, which is like very short. Hopefully it can be brought up to length in this little book, which I got from Peter Popper Press. I'm really looking forward to doing that. It's like lots of exciting historical stuff happened in the year of 1940, and this is the book which I've been using to like keep notes for my alternative history, because the Middle Ages just isn't something I've familiar with like writing about at all. And so this is just like I've written about food or clothes or jewelry or schooling or such in the Middle Ages, and I do need to put little like sticky post-it notes by color and like write what's about it on each page, because obviously when it fills up more, I won't be able to just, flip through and see easily. And unfortunately, I'm running out of time, so I won't be able to give synopses of the two books, which I hope to keep working on throughout this year. But hopefully, I will be doing a lot of good progress on them. And I'm sorry if the lighting was so terrible in this video, but it is after 5 o'clock, and I wasn't able to do any filming earlier, but for obviously reasons too complicated to get into here. So look forward to another video soon. Hopefully I will be able to record on something. My microphone went bluey on the iPad and the iPhone, so I'm unable to do videos there and edit with iMovie. That was picking up like background noise like crazy, so I have to film on the computer for now with a video which doesn't need any images to be inserted in it. So please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing, and hopefully the lighting will be much better in the next video. See you very soon. Thanks. Bye.